Vasil Maliuk is really on a roll, friends. Today, we're going to talk about how Crimea is turning into a real hell for the Russian occupiers. It's becoming a second Chornobaivka, I would even say. About how the security service and the main intelligence directorate are destroying million-dollar equipment. Super expensive enemy equipment. Planes, ships, ammunition depots, oil refineries. We'll talk about why these aren't just some random successes, but rather part of a grand strategic plan that's making Russia weaker right now. And even about how our drones have visited the Caspian Sea again for the 4th time now and destroyed Russian enemy vessels. But let's go through everything step by step. First, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and don't forget to like the video, especially for such an occasion. And so, not to waste your time, I'll get started right away. And we'll begin with the freshest strikes, which are still literally hot, my friends, in the truest sense of the word. Because just in the past few days, the security service of Ukraine has carried out two large-scale operations at one of the key airfields in Crimea, temporarily occupied by Russia, Belbek. First, on December 18th, then long-range drones of the Security Service of Ukraine, namely the fighters of the legendary Alpha Special Operations Center, the handsome ones. The guys simply hit, and I'm not afraid to use this word, a real stash of valuable equipment. So what do we have as a result? As a result, friends, take a look at this footage to start with. 2 long-range radar detection systems of the MBU were destroyed. Just so you understand, these are the eyes of the air defense system. Each one costs between $60 and $100 million. Next, the 92 N6 radar. It might seem like just numbers, but these are very expensive numbers because this is a critically important component of the S-400 Triumph surface-to-air missile system. Well, now it's us who are celebrating after their S-400 Triumph goes up in flames. Its cost is up to $60 million. The Pantsirs 2 surface-to-air missile system, friends, is for close-range defense, and its price is up to $20 million. The MiG-31 interceptor aircraft with a full load of ammunition, that's another $30 to $60 million. So just for a moment, try to add that up yourself. That's losses of hundreds of millions of dollars in a single night, just one night. But Maliuk wouldn't be Maliuk if that were all, because that was only the first act. Then the next day, here's what happened. When does the new strike take place? At the same Belbek, Alpha drones hit the combat aircraft directly this time. 2 Su-27 fighter jets were hit, friends. An important detail, by the way, one of them was on the taxiway, fueled, already armed, and ready for takeoff. It was completely destroyed. So it was about to fly out to bomb us, but ended up getting itself destroyed instead. Well, thanks to Maliuk. The estimated value of these 2 Sukhois is about 70 million. Not rubles. Additionally, the control tower was also damaged. This will make flight operations at the airfield more difficult in the future. So the conclusion here is actually simple. Belbek is a pain for the occupiers. And for us, friends, it's an indicator that key enemy bases in Crimea are no longer safe havens. A legitimate question arises, how did this happen? How did we manage to achieve such massive successes? In fact, this is not a coincidence. This is the result of meticulous work. First, so to speak, the eyes and ears are destroyed. Radars, surveillance systems, then the means of active action, aircraft, air defense systems, and so on, everything I listed above. This is systematic work that follows a plan. By the way, here's an interesting detail, friends. Belbek is the enemy's main airfield in Crimea, but to reach it, a corridor had to be broken through, so to speak. That's why the day before there was a strike on the Kacha airfield where the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, led by Budanov, destroyed, among other things, an An-26. This was a complex operation. First, the radars were destroyed, then the medium and short-range air defense systems, then they got to the MiG-31s, and now to the Su-27s. And every MiG-31 is an irretrievable loss because Russia simply doesn't produce them anymore. Andriy Yusov, by the way, the spokesperson for the main intelligence directorate, confirms that, look, the intensity and accuracy of strikes on Crimea have increased. Each successful strike weakens the enemy and opens up new opportunities for our intelligence and special services of Ukraine. So we are now seeing a clear strategy. Consistently disabling air defense and intelligence systems, then destroying the enemy's most valuable assets right at their bases. But let's, friends, dig a little deeper together. To achieve such successes, preparation was necessary. It's not just like that. You snap your fingers and that's it. You just go and strike. No. This preparation took months, as I understand it, because, well, look, let's start with the facts. Fact number 1. Since August 2025, the number of air defense and radar sites hit in temporarily occupied Crimea has increased several times over. If in the spring and summer there were 3 such strikes, 3 friends, then from August to just October, let's not even count November and December, just October, there have already been 17. Count those 2 months that are catching up with us, and they are literally outpacing this statistic. 17. Why is this the key, friends? In order to strike a critically important target, for example, a headquarters or an airfield, you first need to blind the enemy, to destroy their radars. Only then can cruise missiles, drones, or, for example, naval drones be used. Only then will they be able to reach their target. There is a well-known Ukrainian military expert named Oleksandr Kovalenko. I really liked one of his phrases. He calls Crimea the second Chornobaivka, a great Chornobaivka in the field of air defense. Why? Because the positions of the radars and anti-aircraft systems there are fixed. You can't move them. We know their locations, and when we destroy one of these systems, Russia has to quickly replace it, for example, by removing equipment from its own regions and bringing it to the same vulnerable spot in Crimea. And we strike there again, and there are more hits in the same place. This is an exhausting cycle for them, for the occupiers. Now, separately, friends, about the MBU, this is one of the most advanced and most expensive. Such a thing costs about 100 million RL-SOK in the Russian Federation. Its destruction is actually a colossal blow to Russia and a tremendous success for us. It could detect our missiles at high altitudes. It could guide the S-400s to them. And without it, the so-called incomparable, of course, in quotes, Russian air defense systems, they are simply blind. In other words, the strikes on Belbek are just the tip of the iceberg. They were preceded by months of systematic ongoing work, literally breaking through the powerful air defense shield of the occupiers in Crimea. But I want to tell you, friends, that our army is not only striking military targets. To deprive the enemy of the ability to fight, you have to strike their logistics, you have to hit their infrastructure, and that's exactly what's being done in Crimea, and done very effectively. Take energy, for example. Look at this footage. Strikes on power substations near Feodosia and Simferopol. The Tavrisk test. These are the nodes through which the energy flows from the so-called energy bridge. Without stable electricity supply, the occupation administration, factories, barracks, all of it will operate with interruptions. You understand? Next, oil logistics. This is where the real disaster for the occupiers lies. Because remember, there were powerful strikes on the oil terminal in Feodosia in October. At least 11 giant fuel tanks were completely destroyed there. They burned there for, I don't know, half a month. The total volume was almost 200,000 cubic meters. This is the main link in supplying fuel to Russian troops in the south. And you know what's interesting? There's even a Moscow blogger who lives in temporarily occupied Crimea, temporarily living there. Alexander Sergeyev, a miner, he complains so much. He criticizes this occupation authority, says that they assured us there was nothing there. Where is the Crimean government that was supposed to start dismantling it a year ago, blah, blah, blah. Well, in short, that's the story. So they themselves didn't believe it. That we would hit there, and again, bam, and it got hit. And also, friends, there were strikes on oil depots in Khersivske, Vardieske, and on railway fuel tanks at the Jankoy station. Remember? Why? It's very simple, because of the fuel. For the Russian Dnipro group, which is fighting in the Kherson and Zaporizhzhia directions, the fuel comes precisely from Crimea. If there is no fuel, there are no large-scale offensives either. As Oleksandr Kovalenko says, here's another quote from him: "They will storm Stepnohirsk not with tanks, but with donkeys, with asses." Well, and now, friends, here's some news that truly shows the scale of our special services capabilities. We're not just talking about Crimea or the Black Sea, but also about the Caspian Sea. That's thousands of kilometers from Ukraine. It's the territory of the Russian Federation. But even there, our drones they've reached there for the 4th time in the last 2 weeks. According to the General Staff, Special Operations Forces attacked the Russian Federation's warship Okhotnik, which was patrolling near the Naftogaz platform. At the same time, by the way, just in case, the SBU also struck this very Borova platform of the Falonovsky field. It belongs to Lukoil, and Korchagin, by the way, was also hit before this. This is already the 4th, friends, the 4th strike on this platform in 2 weeks. Why is all this important? First, it's the psychological effect, friends, because not a single point on the map of Russia connected to the war can be considered safe. Second, of course, is economic pressure, because Lukoil is a major sponsor of the war. Striking its infrastructure is a direct blow to the regime's financial capabilities. And third, it's a demonstration of long-range capability. We can hit targets at incredible distances. Russia needs to understand that the war is coming to its own territory. So what do we have as a result? Let's put this puzzle together. We are not seeing random successes. We are witnessing a systematic and strategic campaign. It consists of several stages. First, blinding the enemy, the systematic destruction of radars and air defense systems in order to keep, so to speak, a window open for strikes. Second is striking key military infrastructure, aircraft at airfields, headquarters, ammunition depots. Third is the breakdown of logistics, ports, and the rear, energy facilities, fuel terminals, railway hubs, because without these, an army simply cannot fight. Next is bringing the war onto the aggressor's territory, because strikes on targets inside Russia itself, on its own territory, or rather in the waters of the Caspian Sea, is a super impressive move meant to demonstrate the increased cost of war for every Russian. Crimea for Russia, from an unsinkable aircraft carrier, as they themselves considered it, it is simply turning into a second Chornobaivka, a place where you can endlessly throw expensive equipment, but it will still keep burning. Every destroyed Su-27, every burned, Nebo radar system, every blown up reserve has fueled the fire. It's not just a number, it's a reduction of military potential of the enemy here and now. It's the preservation of the lives of our defenders on the front line for a long time. Look, our intelligence, our special services, our drone designers, everyone is working incredibly, amazingly well. And this work will continue, and let the occupiers have no doubt about it. Thank you, friends. Stay on this channel, subscribe to it, subscribe more actively. Thank you for staying until the end, and see you next time.